Most people never decide. They wake up each day and react to alarms, to emails, to opinions, to pressure. They live on autopilot, driven not by purpose, but by proximity. Whatever is loudest wins. Whatever is urgent steals their energy. Whatever the world hands them, they accept. And slowly, silently, invisibly, they drift. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because they never declared, this is where I'm going. And life does not reward the drifter. It forgets them. It buries them in busyness. It drowns them in distraction. It seduces them into surviving, while deep inside, something sacred begins to rot their potential. But not you, because you're here now, listening, waking, confronting. And that means there is still time to decide, time to live with intent, not with casual interest, but clear command, not with half-hearted goals, but with unshakable direction. Because the truth is sharp. If you do not decide who you are, the world will decide for you. And it will choose something small, something safe, something numb. It will give you comfort without fulfillment, security without freedom, activity without alignment. And then, one day, when the noise has faded, when the race has slowed, you will be left with a haunting question. What did I do with my time here? That's why we don't drift. That's why we don't sleepwalk through life waiting for the right time. That's why we don't let the wind carry us, we set the sail. We live with intent, and that starts inside, with mindset. Not the kind you paste on your bathroom mirror, the kind you bleed for, the kind that is earned in silence and proven in storms. Mindset isn't just thinking positively, it's thinking powerfully. It's the inner conviction that no matter what the world throws at me, I still choose who I am. It's waking up and asking not what's easy, but what's required of me today to move toward the life I was born to live. Because drifting is default, but intent is design. It is war against mediocrity. It is the conscious, continuous decision to shape every moment before it shapes you. It is mental sovereignty. Your thoughts become your compass. Your standards become your guardrails. Your vision becomes your fuel. And belief becomes your breath. Because intent without belief is just a wish. But belief, real belief, it doesn't beg. It declares. It doesn't whisper, I hope. It roars, I am. And that's where power is born, not in circumstance, but in certainty. Not because it's easy to believe, but because it's essential to become. You must believe before the breakthrough. You must believe before the evidence. You must believe even when it costs you relationships, comfort, familiarity, because belief is the door. And most never walk through it. They stand outside waiting for proof, waiting for permission. But you're not waiting anymore. Because now you know your life will not rise to meet your potential. It will rise to meet your self-image. So raise it. Raise it beyond your upbringing. Raise it beyond your environment. Raise it beyond every lie that told you to stay small, to stay realistic, to stay silent. Because belief without boundaries becomes the birthplace of clarity. And clarity is your sword in the fog. It cuts through noise. It eliminates confusion. It gives you the power to say, this matters, this doesn't, this is who I am, that is who I'm not. Most people drown in options because they never took the time to decide what actually matters. But you are done drifting. So you clarify your life like a master sculptor chisels stone, removing everything that doesn't belong, not because it's bad, but because it's not yours. You make room for greatness by cutting the good. And from that ruthless clarity emerges something holy. Vision, not fantasy, not projection. Vision is intention made visible. It is the movie playing in the theater of your soul. The life that pulls you when everything else pushes. The destination you've seen so clearly that turning back feels like betrayal. Vision is what gives your pain purpose. It tells you, this suffering isn't random, it's rehearsal. It tells you, this sacrifice isn't loss, it's alignment. Vision lets you endure what others can't, because you see what others don't. And when you live with that kind of sight, when you see who you could be, who you were meant to be, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the couch. You can't go back to drifting. You can't go back to average, because something wakes up, and that something demands purpose. Not just what you do, but why you do it. Not just what you build, but who you become through the building. Purpose is the difference between exhaustion and emptiness. People burn out not because they're doing too much, but because what they're doing doesn't mean anything. But when you move with purpose, even the hard days feel holy. Even the grind feels sacred. Even the repetition becomes revelation. You don't count hours. You maximize moments. You don't escape work. You worship the process. And that process, it demands one thing above all: discipline. The ability to live in alignment with your intent regardless of how you feel. Discipline is not control. Discipline is commitment to your future self. It's not about doing what's hard, it's about doing what's true. Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when the world says, just take a break. Discipline says, not now. I have a future to protect. Because every undisciplined choice is a vote for regret. And every disciplined decision is a step toward freedom. Live with intent or drift with regret. There is no middle path. Then breathe deep, because this next part is not for the faint of heart. This is where intention becomes incarnation, where thoughts turn into flesh, where dreams grow legs and move. Because once you've decided, once you've chosen purpose, vision, discipline, now you must act, not occasionally, not when you feel ready, not when you're inspired. Now, because action is the language the universe responds to, not your plans, not your vision boards, your behavior. That's how intention becomes real. You move. You get up before the sun. You train your body when no one's watching. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. You do the work no one applauds, because you understand legacy is built in silence. That is the cost of alignment. You cannot live with intent and act from hesitation. You cannot move with vision and keep waiting for someone else to go first. You go first. You become the evidence. You make your life the loudest voice in the room, because action without permission is the purest form of freedom. It says, I no longer need the world to agree, I just need to become. And as you move, as you build, as you live aligned to intention, you'll begin to notice something strange. Even the pain becomes sacred. Even the setbacks feel designed. Even the losses feel intelligent, because gratitude takes over. Not the shallow kind, the deep, cellular kind. The kind that says, thank you for the obstacle, for the delay, for the resistance, because it shaped me in ways ease never could. Gratitude that turns hardship into fuel. That turns why me into try me. That turns every dark moment into a cathedral. You stop needing life to be perfect. You start seeing that it already is. You understand now every moment was a teacher. Every person was a mirror. Every season was a sculptor. And you are no longer bitter. You are better. That's what intent does. It doesn't just change your direction. It changes your perception. And when you start living from that level of gratitude, you become resilient. Not just strong, not just tough, but resilient. Resilience is not bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing forward. It's not recovering. It's rebuilding better. It's falling 10 times and standing up 11, not because you have to, but because you were born to. You were not designed for ease. You were designed for evolution. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in crisis. You don't become powerful despite the pain. You become powerful because of it. So bring the pressure. Bring the storm. Bring the silence, the setbacks, the seasons of nothing working. Because all of it becomes you. And if you embrace that, if you let go of needing it to be easy, needing it to make sense, needing it to be fair, then you rise into your final form, the learner, the master of humility, the one who never stops growing not because they're broken, but because they are unshakably whole. Learning is not weakness. It is worship. It is how the strong stay sharp. It is how the great stay grounded. You study your own life like scripture. You study your mistakes like maps. You study Pio Plena to copy them, but to expand your context. And because you never stop learning, you never stop evolving. You become impossible to contain. You outgrow your past. You outgrow your limits. You outgrow every box they tried to stuff you into. And now there's nothing left to wait for. You're no longer a wanderer. You're no longer drifting. You are deliberate. Every move, every word, every breath with intent. Then let the final flame rise, because this is the moment of return. Not return to who you were, but return to who you were meant to be. The one who was always there beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, the confusion, the chaos. The one who was never lost, only buried. Buried under the weight of expectation. Buried beneath the noise of the world. Buried by the lullaby of comfort and compromise. But now you remember. Now you rise. Not to impress. Not to compete. But to become the kind of person who lives every breath with fire. Who walks with conviction. Who speaks with clarity. Who moves, not because it's safe, but because it's true. This is the life you were always meant to live. A life of intent, not reaction, not survival, not drifting between jobs, between moods, between months, wondering where the time went, but a life where every action is a vote for the future you designed. A life where you wake up on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. A life where regret never sets foot, because discipline already claimed the space. A life where every scar becomes sacred. Every trial becomes testimony. And every setback becomes the exact resistance you needed to forge the next level of you. Because you are not a product of your past. You are a weapon forged by your decisions. And today, you decided. You decided to stop asking for easier and start asking for excellence. You decided to stop chasing applause and start building alignment. You decided to stop drifting and start dominating your direction. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You were never afraid of the hard. You were afraid of the responsibility, of owning the fact that your life, your entire life is yours to create. But now you know. And once you know, you can never unknow. So this is the line. This is the vow. No more drifting. No more regret. From this day forward, you live with intent, with your head held high and your heart wide open, with your actions in sync, with your values, with your mission etched into your spine. You build what you were born to build. You become who you were born to be. And when the end comes, when the story closes, when you look back on it all, you won't feel regret. You'll feel reverence because you lived like it mattered. And it did. And it does. And it always will. Live with intent or drift with regret, but not both. You've already chosen. Now go prove it with every breath you've got left. The calendar doesn't change you. A new week doesn't change you. Another Monday, another sunrise, another round of this time I'll really do it doesn't change you. The world spins, the clock ticks, the seasons shift, but nothing changes until you do. This is the truth most people never confront because it's easier to wait for circumstances than to take control of them. It's easier to point at the economy, the boss, the schedule, the trauma, the timing gand, say, That's why I'm stuck. But the truth is, you're not stuck because of your surroundings. You're stuck because of your standards. You're stuck because you've been waiting for life to change while you stay the same. But life doesn't respond to hope. It responds to you. It responds to the energy you bring, the boundaries you build, the habits you honor, and the identity you embody. It responds to your alignment, because nothing changes until you do. Not in theory, in action, in behavior, in thought, in discipline, in mindset. That's where transformation begins, not in the world, but in the mirror. The mirror never lies. It shows you exactly who you are not, who you pretend to be, not who you post to be, not who you want to be. It reflects your rituals. It echoes your excuses. It reveals your reality. And the moment you look into it without flinching, without defending, without avoiding, just the moment your life begins to shift. Because change is not an event. Change is a decision. A decision to stop blaming. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to stop letting the old you make choices for the future you. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not found in motivation. It's found in the micro movements of your life, the things you do daily when no one's watching. And if those movements are driven by fear, fatigue, or the fantasy that someone else will come save you, then no matter what year it is, you're still living the same story. Because you can't build a new life on old habits. You can't create transformation with the tools that built your limitation. And you can't rewrite your story using the same ink that wrote your excuses. You must change. And that change begins with mindset. Not the kind that feels good to talk about, the kind that demands you confront the weakest parts of yourself. Mindset is not positivity. Mindset is perspective under pressure. It's what you choose to believe when nothing is working. It's what you say to yourself when the world goes silent. It's the standard you set in the moments that no one claps for, no one celebrates, and no one will ever see. Your mindset is the foundation, and until it shifts, your external life will always return to the level of your internal expectation. That's why broke minds sabotage wealth. That's why victims sabotage opportunity. That's why undisciplined minds ruin divine timing. Because your mind is either your engine or your anchor. And it's built not in bursts, but in belief. Belief in what you could be even when what you are doesn't look like much yet. Belief in the next version of you, the one that wakes up early, speaks with clarity, moves with purpose, and walks into rooms with conviction, not confusion. Belief isn't inherited. It's earned through repetition, through action, through honoring the voice inside you that says there's more. Because there is more. But you don't get it by staying the same. You get it by becoming. That becoming starts when belief births clarity. Clarity cuts through chaos. Clarity simplifies. Clarity doesn't give you more to do it. Gives you one thing to fight for. Clarity says, this is the life I'm building. This is who I must become to build it. And anything that doesn't serve that mission gets cut. Clarity removes distraction. Clarity gives your yes power. Because behind every yes that matters is 1,000 sacred no's. And when you get clear, truly clear vision takes over. Vision isn't wishful thinking. It's warfare. It's the picture of your future so real, so detailed, so emotionally charged. It makes staying the same feel like violence. It's what pulls you out of bed when your body wants sleep. It's what keeps your mouth shut when small talk tempts you. It's what makes the work, the boring, daily, gritty, thankless work feel holy. Because vision turns routine into ritual. And when you live by ritual, you don't need motivation. You have discipline. Discipline is the difference between a season and a system, between hope and habits. Discipline says, I don't need the mood. I made a move, and I honor it daily. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's the evidence that you love your future more than you love your comfort. It's the way you say to your highest self, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. I will not abandon this path. And with that discipline comes action. Not erratic, emotional, desperate movement. Aligned action. Focused action. Uncompromising action. Because nothing changes until you change. And once you change, the world changes around you. Your finances shift. Your relationships shift. Your health, your business, your energy, they respond to the new you. But they don't lead, you do. Because when you lead, everything follows. And what fuels your leadership is not noise, not speed, not hustle for the sake of movement. What fuels it is gratitude. Not the gratitude you post online. The kind that breaks you open. The kind that makes you stop mid-struggle and whisper, "Thank you for this pain because it woke me up. Thank you for the setback because it showed me who I was becoming. Thank you for the detour because I never would have found my edge on the smooth road." Gratitude is how you hold your power in the middle of problems. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It is the ability to look life in the face and say, "Nothing you throw at me will make me ungrateful because I use everything." Every challenge is fuel. Every delay is data. Every hardship is another weight added to the barbell of your becoming. Because this is who you are now. You don't flinch at difficulty. You fortify in it. You thrive in the fire. Because you're not trying to get back to who you were. You're building someone new. Someone who bends but never breaks. Someone who adapts faster than average. Someone who transforms pressure into presence. Because resilience is no longer a nice idea, it is your natural state. And resilience is not bouncing back. It's bouncing forward. It's rising smarter, faster, deeper every time life tries to bury you. It's not about never falling. It's about always remembering who you are when you hit the ground. And who are you? You are the one who learns, the one who grows, the one who refuses to repeat lessons that were meant to evolve you. Because now you learn differently. You don't learn just to know. You learn to become. You study not just with your mind, but with your life. Every mistake is a mirror. Every win is a whisper. There's more. Every obstacle becomes your curriculum. You're not a victim of experience. You are a student of it. And the more you learn, the more you shed. You shed the version of you that begged for validation. You shed the one who waited for signs. You shed the one who delayed, distracted, explained, and excused. You've outgrown your old life. You've outgrown your old limits. And now the ground beneath you is different. The air you breathe is different. Because you are different. And the world responds to who you are. Not who you want to be. Not who you pretend to be. Not who you used to be. But who you show up as now. And if you show up changed, everything changes. The room shifts. The standard rises. The results compound. And the regrets disappear. Because you didn't wait. You didn't hope. You changed. And now you're living a life built not by luck, not by force, but by internal transformation. That is real wealth. That is real freedom. And that is how you know the old you is gone. The one who waited. The one who made excuses. The one who thought time would solve it. Gone. And in their place, a force, a presence, a person who doesn't need guarantees because they are the guarantee. Because they know nothing changes until you change. And you've already begun. Then let the silence fall. Let the dust settle. Let the excuses die. Because this is the moment you rise for real. Not with a spark, but with a firestorm. Not with inspiration, but with identity. Because this is not a motivational speech. This is a resurrection of the version of you you buried under fear. The one you silenced with doubt. The one you locked away in the name of playing it safe. But that version, the one built for impact, for legacy, for power, they're alive now. And now the question is not, will life change? The question is, how deep are you willing to go to change yourself? Because this is not about results. This is not about trophies, applause, or approval. This is about returning home to who you really are, before the noise, before the programming, before the world told you how small to think. Because you were not born with limits. You were taught them. And now you unlearn them. You strip the story down to the bone. You throw away the script. You build new rules. You move like someone possessed by purpose. You speak like someone who's done waiting. You walk like someone who understands. Nothing changes until I change. Not the market, not the job, not the world. Me. I am the system. I am the switch. I am the signal the universe was waiting for. And I don't knock on doors anymore. I build the house. And anyone who walks in, they rise too. Because that's the kind of gravity I carry now. Because when I changed, I became the proof. That transformation is not theory, it's available. That greatness is not inherited, it's chosen. That pain is not punishment, it's preparation. And the life I wanted was never out there. It was inside me, waiting for me to stop talking, stop hoping, and start becoming. And now I'm here, no longer interested in someday, no longer curious about how long it will take, because I've already decided, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter what it takes, because this is not a phase, this is not a moment, this is a rebirth. And from this moment forward, nothing changes unless I do. And now, I've changed forever. There's a weight most people never feel until it's too late. It creeps in slowly like dust on a dream. It builds silently and invisibly behind every excuse, every delay, every I'll start tomorrow. And then one day, it crashes. Not in volume, not in violence, but in truth. The truth that you had the time, the truth that you had the talent, the truth that you had the chance, and you didn't take it. That's the weight of regret. It is silent, but deafening, invisible, but suffocating. And once it settles into your chest, it doesn't let go easily. Regret doesn't weigh pounds, it weighs tons. It will bury a man deeper than failure ever could. It will hollow out the soul of the woman who played it safe. It will haunt the mind that said, not now, one too many times. But there is a way to avoid it. There is a lighter weight, a weight that doesn't destroy, but builds. A weight that doesn't break you, but forges you. It's called discipline, and it weighs only ounces. It's the weight of getting up when you don't feel like it. It's the weight of saying no to comfort when no one would blame you for saying yes. It's the weight of showing up again and again, long after the motivation has died and only your standards remain. Discipline is the cost of greatness. It is not loud. It doesn't show off. It doesn't seek applause. It lives in silence. It thrives in repetition. It is the sacred grind that no one sees, but everyone feels once it pays off. And it always pays off. The world may not notice it at first. The results may not arrive immediately, but that small ounce you carry each day, the morning routine, the extra rep, the second wind at midnight, it is accumulating interest. It is compounding identity. Every act of discipline is a deposit into your future self. It says, I matter too much to let myself off the hook. It says, I refuse to live with the weight of what if. It says, this pain I feel now is lighter than the pain I'll feel if I give up. Because that's the secret most never learn. Discipline is temporary. Regret is permanent. The sting of saying no to temptation fades. The ache of waking up early passes. The sweat dries. The soreness fades. The sacrifice becomes strength. But regret lingers. It replays memories in the middle of the night. It whispers in your ear when you see someone else living the life you knew was possible. It sinks into your gut when you realize you trained everyone else to believe in you except yourself. So carry the ounce now. Do the work. Build the habit. Deny the easy path. Because what you avoid today becomes the anchor of tomorrow. And what you embrace today becomes your advantage. You see, people think discipline is about rules, restrictions, a prison, but they're wrong. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster that runs most people's lives. Discipline is your shield in a world full of distractions. Your anchor in storms of doubt. Your compass when the path grows dark. And it doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks, will you do what you said you would do even when the feeling has faded? Because feelings are fragile. They're swayed by weather, by mood, by opinion. But standards stand. And that's what discipline creates, a life built on internal standards, not external circumstance. You stop reacting to life. You start creating it. You start owning your time, your energy, your output. You stop blaming the day and start dominating the day. Because now you're not just drifting, you're directed. That direction is your edge. And it starts with one decision: to choose the lighter weight today so you don't have to carry the crushing one tomorrow. Because once you carry the weight of discipline long enough, it begins to carry you. It builds something underneath the surface, quietly, powerfully, permanently. It builds belief. Not the kind of belief you borrow from a podcast or copy from a quote. The kind that's earned. The kind of belief that comes from doing hard things when no one is clapping. From choosing consistency over chaos. From becoming the kind of person who follows through. Belief is not found, it's forged. Every act of discipline is a vote. And with every vote, you are casting a ballot for a new identity. You're no longer trying to achieve something. You're becoming someone. Someone who doesn't talk about potential, someone who embodies it. Someone who doesn't ask for an easier path, someone who becomes stronger. Someone who doesn't wish for certainty. Someone who creates it from within. And that belief, it begins to bleed into everything. You speak differently. You move differently. You enter a room and people can feel something, an unspoken certainty that doesn't need to explain itself. Because now your clarity is blinding. No more wandering, no more second guessing, no more drowning in the opinions of people who've never built anything themselves. You have clarity now. You know exactly who you are, and more importantly, who you are not. You know what matters. You know what you're building. You've burned the distractions. You've silenced the noise. You've removed the unnecessary. You're no longer trying to do everything. You're doing the essential, the few moves that change everything. Because clarity is power. And with that clarity, your vision sharpens. And vision is not optional. It is oxygen. Without it, you suffocate on the small. You drown in urgency. You become a slave to the calendar, to the crisis, to the cravings of the moment. But with vision, you rise. You say no to what doesn't serve your future. You say yes to what scares you but stretches you. You start moving not just with momentum but with meaning. Vision makes the pain make sense. It gives the sacrifice significance. You don't just grind, you grow. You don't just work, you wake up. Because vision makes your daily discipline a sacred act of destiny. And that vision once seen cannot be unseen. It will chase you. It will haunt you. It will burn inside you every time you betray it for a cheap excuse. Because once you've glimpsed what you could be, the cost of staying the same becomes too high. And from that fire comes purpose. Purpose is not a slogan. It is not a mission statement. It is not something you discover on a retreat. Purpose is forged in the trenches. It is built through resistance, through honesty, through ownership. It is the deep knowing that your life is not a random collection of habits and obligations. It is a message, a movement. And you are the messenger, but only if you accept the weight, only if you choose the ounce. Only if you're willing to carry discipline like a crown, not a chain. Only if you wake up every day and say, not today, regret. Not today. Because today, you train. You build. You honor the weight. You don't run from pressure, you become pressure. You don't beg for peace, you create it through power. You don't hope for transformation, you prove it through action. Every step, every rep, every early morning, every lonely night, it's not just what you're doing, it's who you're becoming. Then brace yourself, because this is where the fire turns into force. Action is not something you wait for. Action is not something you feel your way into. Action is not an option if greatness is your standard. Action is your identity. You don't act because it's easy. You don't act because the stars align. You don't act because someone gives you permission. You act because not acting is a betrayal of your future self. You act because you said you would. And in a world addicted to talking, thinking, planning, and waiting, you become dangerous the moment you decide to move. You don't need another webinar. You don't need another quote. You need to do, because clarity without action is useless. Belief without action is fantasy. Vision without action is delusion. Nothing lives until you breathe into it with behavior. That's why the greats aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most talented. They're the ones who showed up anyway. The ones who moved when it hurt. The ones who dared to look foolish. The ones who failed forward with fire in their eyes. Because they understood this law. Discipline in action becomes identity in motion. And once your identity is in motion, nothing can stop you. You stop waiting for energy, you create it. You stop waiting for time, you command it. You stop waiting for the world, you become the world's signal to rise. And the signal is clear. You don't need easier. You need execution. And when that execution becomes your rhythm, adversity becomes your training ground. Because now you've become resilient. Resilience is no longer something you admire in others, it's what you live. It's the muscle you've trained every time the alarm went off and your body said no. Every time you got knocked down and rose without complaint. Every time you lost and learned. Resilience is not endurance. It is evolution. It is pain transmuted into power. It is rejection turned into redirection. It is the moment you realize life was never trying to break you. It was trying to build you. So you stopped cursing the storms. You started becoming the storm. You stopped praying for escape and started preparing for war. Because you know now, adversity doesn't weaken you. Avoiding adversity does. And so you leaned in. You adapted. You stopped needing perfect conditions. You stopped needing smooth terrain. You stopped needing certainty. You became fluid. You became agile in chaos, calm in crisis, anchored in ambiguity. Because adaptability is the signature of leadership. It says, I will not be shaken. I will bend if I must, pivot when needed, but I will not break. Because the mission is too important. The purpose is too sacred. The time is too short. And the calling is too loud. So you keep moving. You keep building. You keep becoming. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And at the end of it all, when the dust settles, when the results arrive, when the world finally sees what you always knew, you won't be surprised. You won't be shocked. You'll simply smile because you carried the weight they refused to pick up. You paid in discipline, so you never had to pay in regret. And that, right there, that is a life well lived. Then here it is, the closing of the gap. The moment the journey meets the mirror, the place where all your excuses are laid to rest and only one thing remains your decision. Because now you know. Now you've felt it. Now there are no more illusions. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. And the longer you delay that truth, the heavier it becomes. There are no shortcuts that will carry you where discipline won't. There are no hacks to outpace regret. The path is simple. Not easy, but simple. Do what you said you would do. Become who you said you would become. Show up for your destiny before it shows up for you. Because here's the truth most run from. The clock is not waiting. The world is not pausing. And the man or woman you could be is slipping away every time you let the ounce go untouched. Every time you hit snooze. Every time you choose distraction over development. Every time you lie to yourself that tomorrow you'll start. You are placing another brick on the wall called regret. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can tear that wall down. Now, with one act, one choice, one moment of uncompromised courage. Start. Move. Lift the ounce. Let your actions scream louder than your doubts. Let your habits defy your history. Let your consistency become your character. Because this isn't just about goals. It's not about six-packs or bank accounts or applause. It's about becoming someone your future self thanks you for. Someone your past self dreamed of becoming. Someone who looks in the mirror and says not with arrogance, but with deep, quiet pride, I did not settle. I did not surrender. I chose the ounce. I chose the discipline. I chose me. So rise. Rise not for attention. Rise not for validation. Rise for the vow you made to your soul when no one else believed. No more wishing for ease. No more excuses disguised as reasons. No more letting the weight of regret sink its claws into your chest. You are not a victim. You are a weapon. You are not fragile. You are forged. You are not here to tiptoe through life safely to death. You are here to leave fire in your footprints. And if that requires sacrifice, then sacrifice. If that requires sweat, then sweat. If that requires discipline, then carry it with honor. Because there is no heavier burden than wondering what you could have become if only you had tried. So let this be the day the weight of regret dies. And let something greater be born in its place. A life sculpted not by chance, but by choice. Ounce by ounce, day by day, act by relentless act. Because in the end, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And now you know which one to carry. You don't need more time. You don't need more books. You don't need more podcasts or more motivational clips or more journals full of ideas you never execute. What you need is to move. Because the world doesn't change for the person who learns the most. It changes for the one who acts on what they've learned. You've read the quotes. You've heard the speeches. You've written your goals. But until you act, you are only accumulating potential energy. And potential energy never built anything. It never changed the world. It never shifted your bank account, your body, your identity, or your legacy. Only kinetic energy does that. Only movement. So let this hit you like truth in a quiet room. Learning is not growth. Learning is the seed. Action is what makes it bloom. And most people, they've got libraries of wisdom with no fruit on their tree. Not because they're lazy, but because they confused consumption with transformation. They believed that understanding a concept meant they had mastered it. But you don't master what you've learned. You master what you practice. Reading about strength doesn't make you strong. Studying courage doesn't make you brave. Understanding business doesn't make you wealthy. Only doing the work does that. So, stop waiting to feel ready. Stop thinking that the next piece of information is what you're missing. It's not. What you're missing is movement. Because at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I studying because I'm committed to mastery? Or am I studying because I'm scared to move? There's a fine line between preparation and procrastination. And most people hide behind learning because action demands exposure. It demands you risk being seen. It demands you risk being bad at something before you're great at it. It demands that you trade certainty for momentum. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But comfort is not where greatness lives. It's where potential goes to die. So no, you don't need to know more. You need to do more with what you know. You need to turn your morning routine into non-negotiables. You need to turn your vision board into a schedule. You need to turn your passion into a practice. Because information is only power when it leads to transformation. And transformation doesn't begin with what you learn. It begins with what you do next. And what you do next should come from a mindset that's been rebuilt. Because mindset isn't something you recite. It's something you live. It's the inner command center that turns belief into behavior. It's what allows you to get punched in the mouth by failure and still whisper, "We're not done." And your mindset, it doesn't get stronger through lectures. It gets stronger through reps, through exposure, through choosing consistency over comfort. Because mindset without discipline is just hope in disguise. And hope is not a strategy. You need discipline. You need the spine to execute without applause. You need the will to take that book you highlighted and make it a part of your daily identity. Discipline isn't about doing what feels good. It's about doing what's aligned. And alignment, that only happens when your actions echo your values. Not when you say you want success, but when your schedule proves it. Not when you plan to write, to train, to build, but when you show up anyway. Tired, uncertain, uncomfortable. That's how habits are rewired. That's how lives are redesigned. That's how ideas become impact. So let this moment draw a line in the sand between who you were when you only consumed and who you are now that you produce. You are not a collector of concepts. You are a creator of momentum. Because belief without behavior is fiction, and vision without execution is just a hallucination. You say you believe in yourself, then prove it. Not to me, to you, with your calendar, with your habits, with your refusal to stay the same. Because belief is not a feeling. Belief is a decision to rise before you feel ready, to move before you feel perfect, to show up when everything in your body says stay the same. Belief is the fire beneath your excuses. It's the voice that interrupts your comfort with clarity. It's the moment you stop waiting for momentum and start creating it. And when belief takes root, vision comes alive. You stop dreaming in generalities and start building in specifics. You start seeing your future, not as a wish, but as a result, you are creating. You walk into every room already having seen the outcome, not because it's guaranteed, but because it's been decided. And when vision is married to belief, purpose is born. Purpose isn't about finding yourself. It's about remembering yourself. It's not a job title. It's not your passion. It's not some cute sentence you post on social media. Purpose is that invisible contract between your soul and your assignment. It's why you wake up different. It's why you endure more. It's why you refuse to quit, even when no one's watching. Because when you know your purpose, you stop needing permission. You stop needing applause. You stop chasing likes and start chasing legacy. And you don't run from repetition, and you respect it. You respect the mundane. You honor the boring. You fall in love with the grind that no one claps for, because you finally understand repetition is revelation. The world thinks success is found in some big, sexy moment. But you know the truth. Success is found in the discipline to do what you said you would, long after the emotion you said it in has faded. And when that level of discipline becomes your identity, gratitude becomes your power. Not the shallow kind, not write 3 things and move on kind. I mean, real gratitude. Gratitude that grounds you. Gratitude that sharpens you. Gratitude that makes you unstoppable. Because now you're not building from lack. You're building from alignment. You're not fighting for self-worth. You're expressing it. You don't need external validation anymore. Because every morning you wake up breathing, you're already winning. And the more grateful you are, the less excuses you tolerate, the less fear you entertain, the less average you accept in your orbit. Because when your spirit is full, you refuse to play small. Because when you stop playing small, the world doesn't just notice, it adjusts. You stop adapting to your environment, and your environment begins adapting to you. That's the power of adaptability. Not as a survival mechanism, but as a strategy of the elite. Because the future doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most flexible, the ones who don't break when the plan breaks, the ones who know how to pivot with poise, the ones who've trained their mind to ask, what's the opportunity inside this chaos? And there's always opportunity, always a lesson hiding inside disruption, always a new version of you waiting behind discomfort. But most people never meet that version because they run from the unfamiliar. They flinch at change. They forget you were built to evolve. Adaptability isn't weakness. It's warrior wisdom. It says, I am not attached to method-only mission. It says, I will do whatever it takes to stay in alignment with the life I said I would live. That's when resilience takes root. Not the fake kind that pretends everything is fine. Not the smile through pain, act like your tough version. Real resilience. The kind that looks failure in the face and says, you don't scare me anymore. The kind that sees rejection as redirection. The kind that doesn't need to be loud because it's grounded. Resilience isn't just the ability to bounce back. It's the power to bounce forward, to come out of pain more precise, to come out of storms more skilled, to come out of failure more focused. Because now you don't just survive life. You study it. You become a lifelong learner. Not because you need more certificates, but because you understand, the more I learn, the less I settle. The more I study my patterns, my pain, my path, the more dangerous I become to average. You read because you're building tools. You invest in mentors because you're collapsing time. You reflect because you're sharpening awareness. And awareness is the beginning of every breakthrough. Because you cannot transform what you are unwilling to observe. And you cannot master what you are afraid to measure. But now you've stopped hiding. Now you look yourself in the mirror eyes, wide open, and say, I am the architect now. No more potential without results. No more knowledge without action. No more living as a student of concepts instead of a practitioner of greatness. You've crossed the threshold. You've exited the cycle. You've stepped into the identity that doesn't need to be reminded anymore. Because the most powerful person in the room is not the one with the most ideas. It's the one with the most execution. And now, that's you. You don't just study wisdom. You embody it. You don't just highlight truth. You become it. You don't just learn anymore. You act, and every action whispers into the future. I will not be the one who almost did. I will not be the one who only knew. I will be the one who built, because I turned my learning into legacy. You are not just informed. You are on fire. You are not just aware. You are awake. You are not just a thinker anymore. You are a mover, a maker, a multiplier of momentum. And the world is now forced to reckon with a person who no longer just knows better. You are the one who does better because you didn't let your learning lead to knowledge. You let it lead to action. And that changes everything. Your time is not infinite. Your energy is not renewable. Your life is not a dress rehearsal. So why do so many spend their one and only chance at this world majoring in minor things? They perfect the unimportant. They obsess over the trivial. They win arguments that don't matter, post content that doesn't count, pursue goals that won't fulfill them and call it a life. But what they've built is a well-decorated distraction. Because when your priorities are out of order, even your best efforts become empty. When your ladder is leaned against the wrong wall, every step up is just another step away from your purpose. And when you spend your life majoring in minor things, you wake up one day surrounded by results that don't resemble who you were born to be. It's a slow death, one excuse at a time, one click at a time, one meaningless task completed with pride while your calling starves in silence. But it doesn't have to be that way, because clarity can cut through the fog like a sword. And one decision can bring it all back into alignment. That decision? To major in what matters. To stop being busy and start being brutal about what actually belongs in your life. To stop counting tasks and start measuring impact. Because the truth is this: your life becomes the sum total of what you give your focus to. Your results don't lie. They reveal your priorities, your bank account, your body, your calendar, your relationships. All of them are mirrors not of your desire, but of your discipline. And discipline means choosing what matters most when everything else is screaming for attention. It means deciding that just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. That just because it's trending doesn't mean it's truth. It means cutting ruthlessly, not with guilt, but with honor. Because you don't have time to carry what doesn't move your mission forward. You were not put on this earth to be efficient at the irrelevant. You were not born to master the meaningless. You were born to build something eternal. And that building begins in the mind. Because if you don't master your mindset, you'll major in noise. You'll wake up every day pulled by emotion, seduced by comparison, addicted to distraction, and never even notice that your power was leaking. Mindset isn't about motivation. It's about management. Managing what thoughts stay and which ones go. Managing your attention like it's gold, because it is. Managing your reaction so that your energy is used to build, not to battle imaginary threats. Because your mind is a kingdom. And if you let every thought run free, you invite chaos to rule it. But when you take control, true control, you begin to elevate. You stop wasting time trying to change what you can't control and start transforming what you can to yourself. And from that transformation rises belief. Not borrowed belief, not hype, not feel-good affirmation. Earned belief, the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself, from doing the work when nobody's watching, from showing up again and again, not for praise, but for purpose. Because belief is the gateway to focus. And once you believe that your life matters, your time becomes sacred. You stop trading hours for validation. You stop saying yes to things that dilute your destiny. You stop apologizing for protecting your energy because you know if it costs your peace, it's too expensive. And with that belief comes clarity. Clarity that pierces through the chaos of modern life and says, this is who I am. This is what I'm building. And I refuse to let the minor things run the major show. Clarity brings order. It's the compass in the storm. The still voice that says, not that this, not them this path, not someday now. And when clarity burns hot enough, vision takes hold. Vision that doesn't care about popularity. Vision that doesn't bow to public opinion. Vision that is so clear it makes average feel like a threat. Because vision isn't something you find. It's something you fight for. And once you have it, it makes saying no not only easier, it makes it essential. Because now you know every yes to a distraction is a no to your destiny. And you don't have time to waste on what won't outlive you. Because once vision locks in, your life is no longer random. It becomes ritual. You don't drift. You design. You don't dabble. You decide. You don't ask, what do I feel like doing today? You declare, this is who I am, and this is what I do, regardless of how I feel. That's the power of purpose. It eliminates confusion. It wipes out distraction. It gives every minute meaning, even the painful ones. Because purpose doesn't just fuel you when things are working. It anchors you when everything's falling apart. It gives weight to your discipline. And discipline is the great separator. Discipline is the immune system against the infection of mediocrity. It is the daily vow that says, I choose what matters most over what feels best. I choose consistency, not convenience. I choose direction, not dopamine. You cannot major in what matters and be a slave to comfort. You cannot build anything eternal by doing what's easy. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not flashy. It's not meant to be posted. It's meant to be lived. It's quiet. It's boring. It's repetitive. And that's why it works. Because while others chase noise, you choose ritual. While they major in minor things, you master what matters. And when discipline becomes non-negotiable, action becomes automatic. Not emotional, not dramatic, automatic. You act because you've already decided. You move because your movement isn't tied to motivation, it's tied to mission. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You stop waiting for a sign because you are the sign. And that movement compounds. Those small actions, they become identity. They become your signature. They become the proof that you are not like the rest because you've chosen a different path. And on that path, every action becomes a statement, not to otherstill yourself. I will not waste my life on the meaningless. I will not give my attention to what doesn't build me. I will not lose years to busyness while my legacy starves. Because now you live in gratitude. Gratitude for the hard path. Gratitude for the narrow road. Gratitude for the ability to choose again, to wake up, to realign, to return to what matters. Gratitude isn't about being soft, it's about being aware. It's seeing the value in the challenge. It's recognizing that even struggle serves your spirit. Because now you don't resist the pain. You redeem it. You use it. You wield it. You wear it as armor. And when pain comes knocking again, you meet it with resilience. Not because you're fearless, because you've trained, because you've built a life so aligned, so intentional, so mission-driven that nothing minor can break you. Not opinions, not delays, not even failure. You don't break. You bend forward. You don't shatter. You sharpen. You don't retreat. You recalibrate. Because every time you rise again, you rise richer. Richer in wisdom. Richer in awareness. Richer in character. And all of that wisdom becomes fuel for your learning. Because you're not here to pretend you know everything. You're here to grow through everything. You listen. You adapt. You adjust with humility and move with conviction. Because learners never lose. They evolve. And evolution is the enemy of average. It is the death of distraction. It is the cure to the disease of majoring in the meaningless. And now you know. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being precise. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Then let's finish this with fire in your bones and clarity in your soul. Because this is not just another reminder. This is a reckoning, a sacred confrontation between the life you've been living and the life you were born to lead. No more pretending you don't know the difference. No more playing dumb while your calling starves. No more calling burnout grind and mediocrity balance. You know the truth now. You can feel it. Every time you waste your hours on things that don't matter. Every time you chase the applause instead of the alignment. Every time you settle for being impressive instead of being impactful. You feel that whisper inside, you go quiet. And now you're done with that. You're done majoring in minor things. You are done being busy instead of being effective. You are done saying yes to everyone while saying no to your own becoming. This is the moment you cut the cord. This is the moment you raise your standard from productive to powerful. Because now, the only things that get your time are the things that shape your legacy. The only things that get your energy are the things that grow your character. The only things that get your heart are the things that carry your purpose. Everything else, gone. You're not ruthless because you're heartless. You're ruthless because you're awake. You've realized that you only get one shot at this, and you are no longer available for anything less than truth. So you draw the line. You declare with your actions, I will not waste my time decorating distraction. I will not live like my days are unlimited. I will not be remembered as someone who almost became something. From this moment forward, you major in what matters. You move with clarity. You speak with authority. You act with urgency. You're not waiting for alignment. You're choosing it. You're not reacting to life. You're orchestrating it, because the man or woman who majors in the essential, who masters the meaningful, who lives every day in devotion to what is eternal, that person changes the world. So let the world chase noise. Let them obsess over vanity. Let them drown in distraction. You walk the narrow road. You speak the deeper truth. You live the kind of life that cannot be ignored, because your focus became your freedom, and your freedom became your flame. Don't major in minor things. Not now. Not ever again. Because the clock is ticking, and the world is watching, and you have work to do. Excuses are the chains we forge with our own tongues. Excuses are poverty's favorite song sung loud by the mouths of those who have forgotten their power. They dress themselves in logic, wear the mask of reason, and offer the illusion of safety. But make no mistake, every excuse is a prison. Not of bars and steel, but of mindset, of belief, of identity. Excuses don't protect you, they poison you. They strip you of your agency. They whisper in your ear, you're not ready. You're too tired. You've already tried. And if you believe them long enough, they become your truth. But here's the real truth. No one ever built a legacy by explaining why they couldn't. No empire was born through justification. No greatness was ever forged in the fires of, I would have, but. Excuses are the vocabulary of the defeated, the anthem of the mediocre. They are the lullaby of those who've chosen comfort over calling. And once you start speaking their language, they become your currency. A currency that buys you sympathy, but never freedom. A currency that keeps you poor in vision, poor in courage, poor in discipline, poor in results. Because poverty isn't just in the bank account. Poverty begins in the mind, and the mind that runs on excuses will never generate wealth, inner or outer. You want to know how people stay stuck? How people live year after year, circling the same problems, the same pain, the same paycheck? They explain it. They justify it. They build narratives that sound intelligent, but are rooted in fear. It's not the right time. I don't have the resources. I wasn't born with the talent. These are not facts. These are scripts. Memorized lines passed down from the poor in spirit. And the moment you stop questioning them, the moment you stop challenging the noise, you inherit a life that is not yours. It is a copy of someone else's limitations. But you are here now, which means the flame is still alive, which means something inside you is tired of the language of lack. And now is the time to trade it in. Trade your excuses for execution. Trade your fears for fire. Trade your doubt for discipline. Because every time you silence an excuse and take action anyway, you reclaim territory inside your soul. You declare, I am not powerless. You declare, I do not belong to limitation. You declare, I will no longer narrate a story of why I can't, because I am too busy proving that I can. And that declaration, that's where richness begins. That's how wealth is born. Not just in money, but in character, in energy, in mastery, in the kind of person you become when you stop explaining away your destiny and start claiming it. Excuses are the reason people live entire lives inside cages with open doors. Don't let that be you. Because every moment you allow an excuse to lead your life, you make a payment. And that payment, it's your potential. Gone. Wasted. Traded for the cheap comfort of, I'll do it later. But later is not coming. Later is where dreams go to die. And the longer you wait, the heavier the excuse becomes. Until one day, it becomes identity. Until one day, it becomes who you are. And once it owns you, it takes everything with it. Your confidence, your clarity, your drive, your results. You become a shell of who you could have been. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be a mouthpiece for mediocrity. You can choose right now to speak a different language. The language of the powerful. The language of the focused. The language of the wealthy in mindset. And that language begins with ownership. Total. Radical. Unapologetic ownership. No more blaming the system. No more blaming the past. No more blaming your parents, your boss, your genes, your environment. Because the moment you give someone else responsibility for your pain, you also hand them control of your power. But the moment you say, this is mine, my life, my responsibility, my choice, that's the moment the chains break. That's the moment the real wealth begins to accumulate, not just in your wallet, but in your being. And wealth responds to those who own their direction. Because ownership is the seed. And when you plant it in the soil of mindset, everything begins to shift. Mindset isn't about being positive. It's about being powerful. It's not about wishing for the best. It's about preparing for whatever comes and knowing you can bend it to your will. The poor in mind ask, what if it goes wrong? The rich in mind ask, what will I do when it does? And how fast will I rise? Mindset is your fortress. It is the vault where your habits are guarded, your energy is protected, and your future is defended. You don't wait for motivation. When your mindset is strong, you move. Because movement is your muscle memory. The difference between success and stagnation is not Luckett's language. And when your internal language is coded in excuses, every external result suffers. But when your language shifts to ownership, everything responds. Because the universe doesn't speak emotion. It doesn't speak intention. It speaks execution. It listens to frequency. And the frequency of belief, of discipline, of purpose, it moves worlds. So when your mindset sharpens, belief becomes the fire inside. Not belief in ideas, not belief in motivation, belief in yourself. And that belief is forged, not found. It is built in silence, in the dark, when no one is watching, when no one claps. It is built when you show up anyway, when you do the thing you said you would, especially when it's hard. Belief is the result of self-trust, and self-trust is the real wealth, because the world doesn't reward who you pretend to be. It rewards who you consistently are. And if you consistently show up weak, scared, or scattered, don't be shocked when life reflects that back to you. But if you show up clear, if you show up with clarity that burns, you stop chasing. You start attracting, because clarity is a magnet. It makes excuses irrelevant. You don't say, I don't feel like it. You say, feelings don't vote anymore. My future does. You don't ask, is this hard? You ask, is this aligned? You don't seek comfort. You seek alignment. And that alignment gives birth to vision. A vision so clear it makes quitting feel like betrayal. A vision so alive you can taste it in the back of your throat when you wake up. Vision isn't a dream, it's a demand. It calls something out of you that fear cannot touch. It makes excuses sound weak in your ears. You no longer have time for maybe. You no longer have space for someday. You are done waiting. You're building. You're becoming. You're moving with purpose now. And purpose doesn't care about how you feel today. It cares about who you said you would be when you were on your knees, begging for another chance. That's purpose. Purpose remembers. It remembers the nights you said, never again. It remembers the promises you whispered when no one was listening. And now it's holding you to them. Because excuses want release, but purpose demands resolve. And once purpose lives in you, discipline becomes sacred. Discipline becomes your highest expression of self-love. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop arguing with excuses. You stop asking for motivation. You show up, and that showing up is the knife that cuts the cord from poverty. Not just financial poverty, but mental, emotional, spiritual lack. Because you are done living small. You are done speaking the language of the poor. Now you speak in action. You speak in standards. You speak in results. And the world listens. Because now you speak in behavior. And behavior is the loudest belief system. It's not what you say in your quiet moments, it's what you repeat in your public ones. It's not what you feel in bursts, it's what you build in patterns. Action is identity in motion. So if your actions are scattered, your identity is unsure. If your actions are delayed, your belief is weak. If your actions are excuses dressed in logic, then you are not living, you are stalling. But when your actions become disciplined, when your days become precise, when your habits mirror your hunger, then you don't just make progress. You become unstoppable. Because there's something the world cannot deny the man or woman who refuses to stop. Not because they're gifted, not because they're lucky, because they made the decision to move forward even when everything screamed, stay. And that movement is not random. It's adaptable. Because now you no longer resist change, you ride it. You no longer pray for certainty. You command clarity inside chaos. You no longer fold under pressure. You flex with it. Adaptability is wealth. Not the wealth that shines. The wealth that survives. The wealth that lasts. Because the poor in mindset, they break at the first sign of change. But the rich in spirit, they bend. They morph. They reinvent, not because they're unshaken, but because they're unbreakable. And that unbreakable spirit, that's called resilience. It's not bounce back. It's bounce forward. It's using the fall to catapult your rise. It's using the wound to sharpen your weapon. It's using the silence to deepen your roots. Because resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in crisis. It's built when your excuses are screaming and you tell them, you don't speak for me anymore. It's built when your body is tired, your mind is foggy, and your heart is aching, but you still show up. Not because it's easy, because it's required. Because regret is no longer welcome here. Because you've seen what happens when you live in excuses. You felt what it's like to watch others rise while you explain your limits. You've tasted what it means to know you're capable of more and still choose less. And you are done. Done with smallness. Done with softness. Done with maybe someday. Now you rise. And you rise as a learner. Because you know growth is the only guarantee of freedom. And the moment you stop learning, you start decaying. So you feed your mind like a warrior sharpens their sword. You devour truth. You devour challenge. You devour discomfort. You no longer fear being wrong because being wrong means you're still becoming. You no longer need to be the smartest. You just need to be the one who never stops evolving. Because while the poor argue, the powerful adapt. While the stuck defend their excuses, the uncommon study their execution. And now, so do you. Because you're not here to coast. You're not here to settle. You're not here to fit in with the tired, tame, and terrified. You are here to build, to become, to burn through the limits of your past and give birth to someone the world cannot ignore. Then stand still for just a moment. Let it all sink in. Let the excuses, the lies, the dead weight of average fall off you like old skin. Because this is the moment it all changes. Not because something around you shifted, but because you did. This is the moment you stop negotiating with your lesser self. This is the moment you bury the voice that said, "You can't," with the roar of "Watch me." This is the moment the word "someday" burns into "now." Because now, you've remembered who you are. You are not here to explain why you couldn't. You are not here to list the reasons it was hard. You are not here to water down your potential to make the average feel safe. You are here to rise. You are here to become the exception. You are here to build a life so loud with evidence that excuses no longer dare to speak your name. So what's the next excuse? That you're too late? Time doesn't control the one who owns it. That you're too tired? Fatigue bows before purpose. That you've already failed? Then you're one of the lucky ones. Because pain is the only shortcut that matters. You are not your mistakes. You are the lesson pulled from the fire. You are not your past. You are the pattern breaker. You are not your circumstance. You are the creator of new reality. But only if you choose it. Only if you decide that today is the last day you speak the language of the poor. No more "I wish." No more "I'll try." No more "maybe one day." From now on, you say, "I will." You say, "Watch me." You say, "This life bends to my will because I no longer bow to mine." Because this is your time. Not when it's easier, not when it's perfect. Now is the only time that ever mattered. Now is the only door that's real. Now is the only moment that separates you from the life you were given and the life you create. So what will it be? Another year of reasons? Another month of stories? Another day of playing small? Or will you rise right now and declare with your entire being, excuses are the language of the poor, and I no longer speak that dialect. From now on, I speak results. I speak responsibility. I speak greatness, because I am done justifying mediocrity, and I have work to do.